A very good evening, everyone. A great pleasure, as always, to come together, although we're not able to do so physically as much as we would like to, but these forums provide for us a chance of connecting to one another, and sometimes we could do for religious reasons, sometimes we can do for some levity and good community fun, but other times coming together is really for quite critical and important functions. In December time, you may have noticed that the chief rabbi had an article in The Guardian in which he called out regarding the Uyghur genocide taking place for the Uyghur Muslims. And I have to say, until that point in time, I wasn't really following, I wasn't really tuned in to this, to the atrocities that were taking place in China. But since then, my eyes were opened, and probably the first step to addressing an issue is knowing that an issue is there. We as a people are very attentive and very aware that oppression is something that exists, and certainly something which historically our people have struggled with. And we are also fully aware that there is a call as Jewish people to look towards and to help those who are in need as we once were in need ourselves. And that really is a core fundamental part of what it means to be a Jewish person. We're not allowed to sit back. We're not allowed to ignore. We're not allowed to be silent when atrocities take place. But for us to speak out, it doesn't come as much of a cost as it does for people who are actually involved and are actually suffering themselves. Rahima Mahmut is the director of the World Uyghur Congress. She will share with us some of her story, but we're in the company of a tremendously brave and courageous woman who has firsthand experience of the oppression taking place back from her homeland, and what her family go through, and she has championed the cause of the Uyghur Muslims for many years now as a human rights activist, and anything that we can do, anything that we're able to do in order to listen, in order to be able to help, is so critical and so important. So I would just first like to say how privileged we are to have Rahima here, and how important that this evening's event is. And I'm so pleased for all those who are attending. Before Rahima begins to speak, I'm going to just play a little bit of a clip for those who are less familiar with what has been going on, and then I'll hand over to her, and there will be time for questions from everyone as well at the end of her presentation. So just to share a clip, just give me 1 second.
A BBC investigation has found evidence that China's policy of transferring hundreds of thousands of Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities from northwest Xinjiang to factory jobs often far from home is being used as a method of uprooting and assimilating the population. It's also uncovered possible connections between these workers and some major international brands. China says that transferring workers away from the region is a way of tackling rural poverty and unemployment. Our China correspondent John Sudworth has this report.
At this factory, the Uyghur workers are clearly visible, more than 2,000 miles from home, brought all the way to central China by a massive relocation scheme. Now the BBC has found compelling evidence of how it works. In this Xinjiang village, the authorities need 100 people to send to jobs on the other side of the country. They set up a stall, but this 2017 state media report shows no one's interested. So they go house to house. If you stay here, this official says, you'll be married soon and never be able to leave. Will you go, he asks. No, she says. But with a mixture of propaganda and heavy persuasion, the young woman eventually agrees. I'll go if others. The BBC has new evidence that this separation from family and culture is, in part at least, precisely the point. A Chinese study produced for senior officials says labour transfers help assimilate Uyghur minorities, transform their thinking and reduce Uyghur population density. The study was posted online in error. Some of Xinjiang's mainly Muslim minorities are sent first to the giant re-education camps where China says it's fighting extremism, then to the factories.
Hello.
Very few have managed to leave China after their release.
There
were 200 workers in the factory. We sold children's clothes and we are obliged to sing the Chinese national anthem. They said, the faster you work, the faster we'll let you go.
But most of those transferred to work have not been in the camps and are sent direct from poor villages. The study also outlines how they are transported in groups, accompanied by security guards and put through political indoctrination.
This is just an unprecedented authoritative source written by really leading academics and former government officials with unprecedented high-level access in Xinjiang itself. That drives home the implications of what is going on here. There are higher goals of manipulating population density and demographics that, in my opinion, are very concerning, and they really point us towards crimes against humanity.
We found products that may contain yarn from this company on sale on Amazon in the UK. The factory says it no longer employs Uyghurs, and Amazon told us it doesn't tolerate forced labour. And this factory makes plastic mouldings for some major international brands. So we've spoken to one worker here who has confirmed that as many as a few hundred Uyghurs are employed in this factory. But unlike the Chinese staff, they are unable to leave the factory premises. In a statement, the Chinese government said the study seen by the BBC reflects only the author's personal view, and much of its contents are not in line with the facts. But in large part it echoes government thinking. Some Uyghurs, it concludes, are unwilling to leave their homes, a problem that should be tackled with strong guidance and persistent measures. John Sudworth, BBC News, Beijing.
Okay, this is specifically just from this past week or two, and is just one illustration which was appropriate for this audience to share some of the atrocities taking place. Rahima, this is harrowing stuff, but for you it's all personal, and we thank you for joining us for an evening of education and exploration, and we hand over to you and we welcome you to our community.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Rabbi, for organizing this event. So give me this platform to share my own experience and also the background of what is happening, what has been happening. First of all, I am Uyghur. A lot of people cannot even find it difficult to pronounce Uyghur. Uyghur is fine, is perfectly fine. A lot of people also ask me why you're so different from the Han Chinese. A background about Uyghurs: we are the Muslims and our language is Turkic. The closest other ethnic groups are Turkic people, are the Uzbeks, Uzbek and Uyghur, we don't need to study one another's language. We can communicate without any education. And Uyghurs, we called the land of where we come from as East Turkestan. And the Chinese called it Xinjiang, Uyghur Autonomous Region. Xinjiang means new frontier or new territory. The first occupation, the invasion, started during the Qing dynasty. So that was in 1759. That was, and then dominated until 1864. Later, then after the revolt, 1864, we successfully expelled the Qing dynasty officials from the East Turkestan and the Kashgaria kingdom, and yet so later they came back, invaded again. So before the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party invaded, established nowadays the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, we had two very brief independence in 1933 and 1944. The reason for Uyghurs always had this desire of having independence because of the persecution, due to the persecution. From the very earliest invasion in 1759, that the historians estimated that 1 million was slaughtered, 1 million Uyghurs was slaughtered, and the land was so devastated, it took generations for it to recover. So since the latest occupation in 1949, even though it looked as if it was peaceful, but during the rightist movement, which started in 1958, and then Cultural Revolution throughout China, and Uyghurs and Tibetans suffered the most losses because we have different language, different religion, and different cultural background. And that's what China doesn't like. They want everyone all to be assimilated, speak the same language, and especially the CCP government doesn't want anyone have religion, even though in the under the Chinese constitution, it says religious freedom, apart from the CCP, the Communist Party members. But in reality, we never had a kind of full freedom. So I was born in a very large religious family. My father's side was religious. My mother from a very musical family, from my great-grandparents. They are well-known musicians and singers. And so I kind of inherited that talent, luckily. So from very young age, I know that the Uyghurs are treated very differently, even though the place where we lived at that time, that you hardly see any Han Chinese people, but the regime, the policies were so strict. And when my father and my elderly siblings, when they prayed, they had to lock the gate from inside. We lived in a big house. And so they often lock the gate from inside, and after finished prayer, then they open it. And we were often warned that if you go out, don't tell people that we prayed. If you do, police will come and it would take me. My father often said, the police will come and take me away. And that was the latter years of the Cultural Revolution. Later, Mao died in 1976. Chairman Mao, the man who ruled China with iron fist and killed millions throughout China. So he died after he died, the new leadership from the beginning of 1980, the situation changed for better. So the mosques reopened, people were much happy, and my father became an imam for the local mosque, in the local mosque. I was brought up in a this kind of very rich musical and religious and very loving big family, very big family. I went to university when I was 17. I went to the Dalian University of Technology, which is 6,000 kilometers away from homeland. I studied petrochemical engineering there. My father didn't want any of my siblings, including myself, to become musician or singer. He wanted us to, in order to get a better job, to study science. So that's why I studied petrochemical engineering. But on the year when I returned in 1992, after graduating with a very top equivalent to 1-1 here, I couldn't find a job in Urumqi, in the capital of Urumqi, but I could see all the Han Chinese come from the mainland China. They arrived today, the next day they already had a job. So the problem in the region, the root cause of the problem that I'm mentioning, that is because of this kind of the Uyghurs become stranger in our own historical homeland. The Chinese government, the policy from the 80s and especially early 90s, the new regulations and the discriminative policies. So the tension started, especially the event that which made me to make decision to leave my country was in 1997, February the 5th, the Rolja peaceful protest, and that turned massacre. The government deployed military, killing over 100 peaceful protesters. That peaceful protest took place because for 3 months the Chinese government had this religious crackdown, raiding the worship places and arresting, targeting the young Uyghur clerics. And after 3 months, this heavy, intense policy and arrest, the Uyghur youth, about 200-300 to start with, went onto street to protest, and later the other people, students and public joined the protest, and then the government opened fire and branded it as a separatist movement. And in 1999, Amnesty report documented 195 execution. And I have several relatives and very good friends who involved in this peaceful protest were given very lengthy prison sentence. And that was the kind of turning point that I felt that the things was getting really, really bad. The Uyghur increasingly become kind of target, regardless whether you have different opinion or not. And the government started targeting, especially the intellectuals. So I left my country in 2000 after got a student visa to study here. And then I never went back. From the day when I arrived here, I have been talking about who are Uyghurs and what is happening to the Uyghur people. I've been telling people about the 1997, the Rolja massacre, and many other massacres which happened during the time that I lived there in what I call East Turkestan. So since I came back, I often hoped that one day things might change and I might be able to go home, might be able to see my sisters, my brothers. My mother was alive until 2013. I lost her during my fight against cancer in 2013. And but now I realize those were still very happy years until the January 2017. That is time that I completely cut off from anyone from my country. 2016 October, after I spoke to my sister, and then my phone left unanswered. Whoever I called, no one would pick up the phone. And that lasted for about 2 months. I became very, very worried. My eldest sister, who was suffering depression after she lost her husband and her eldest son within 6 months, I was like a counselor to her. And my eldest brother, who also have severe health conditions. And I was very, very worried when they didn't answer my phone. And then in January, on the 3rd of January 2017, my last call, my brother answered. And when I asked him why no one answering my phone, and he said, they did the right thing. Please leave us in God's hands. And his voice was trembling when he said that. And I didn't question, I didn't say anything, I got the message. And soon after that exchange, that telephone call, we already knew that things are getting worse from some people that who left during that period to Turkey or other countries, that they are already saying that the people cannot breathe. They set up every checkpoints every 200 meters. And people have to, Uyghurs and other Muslims must go through these checkpoints. The Han Chinese didn't have to. And people are disappearing, disappearing. Then from April 2017, when this mass arrest started, we started to get a lot of information, even though they tried to control the information. But God has its way to give us this information. I'm not going to go into detail about how we got the information, but from one of the officials at the time who traveled abroad, and who sent message through another person that, World Uyghur Congress must aware the Chinese government might the policy is that it's genocidal. That was a message that we got in 2017. So they are now, unlike any other crackdowns in the past. We used to crackdowns normally last 2 months, 3 months, or sometimes 6 months. But this message, when we received, it said maybe there will be mass killings. There will be a lot of terrible things will happen to our people. So, be prepared, and please tell the world and let the world know what is happening. And slowly, gradually, by 2018, we had quite substantial evidence about what has been happening. And very first survivors of internment camp, the concentration camps, Umar Bakali, who was Kazakh, who was released from the camp because he's a Kazakhstan citizen, and the Kazakhstan government campaigned for his release. And as soon as he arrived to Kazakhstan, he gave an interview to the Radio Free Asia, US-based Radio Free Asia. And when he was arrested, he was up over 90 kilo. When he was released, he was about just skin, it's like completely different person. The Radio Free Asia reported it, and I translated his interview, and it was shocking. He said he was chained throughout the time when he was arrested, and he reported about the torture, indoctrination, forcing elderly to recite the Chinese slogans and anthems. A lot of Uyghurs, especially elderly, don't even speak Chinese. And they said they're the people who cannot repeat what they were told to repeat, and they are being tortured. And it was really shocking. And then in 2018, in August, it was the very first time the UN openly acknowledged all the evidence that submitted by the World Uyghur Congress and many other Uyghur human rights organizations and other organizations, including some Chinese human rights organizations, with all these satellite images of these large camps. Then openly acknowledged and criticized China that Chinese government is illegally detaining up to 1 million Uyghur and other Muslim minorities. Initially, the Chinese government completely just denied what is happening. But later, after confronted with the mountains of evidence, then they said, well, yes, but these are not concentration camps or internment camps. These are vocational training camps. So then in 2019, in November, the end of November, we had a huge leak of classified Chinese government's documents. And that gave very inside information about the intent, the real intent. As I mentioned, in 2017, we already heard this verbally about this policy, but we couldn't prove because the person who gave us this information cannot reveal the identity, cannot give us the actual document. But from this leaked document, it showed from the Xi Jinping in 2014, People's War on Terror. And then it said, no blind spot. It has to be round up everyone, whoever can be rounded up, wipe them out completely. This is the actual document. It says, wipe them out completely, destroy them root and branch, and break their lineage, break their roots, break their connections, and break their origins. And it compared the Uyghurs as a malignant tumor and Islam as mental disease. And it said in these documents, you cannot uproot weeds one by one among the crops. You have to spray chemicals to kill them all. It's very, very terrifying to even read those documents, even though I have been working as an interpreter translator. I have translated many survivors' accounts. But when we had this document, when we reading this, it's just so chilling. And gradually now we know the mass birth prevention strategies of mass sterilizing Uyghur women, and giving lengthy sentence to male to prevent male to go home. Government deploying 1 million Chinese cadres into the Uyghur homes. So every cadre, male mostly, must stay with Uyghur family 5 days a month to monitor their habits, whether they speak Chinese or Uyghur, whether they pray, whether they eat halal food. So since the occupation during the Qing era up until now, until 2017, whatever happened, all these massacres that I have mentioned, you still cannot compare what is happening now. Now it is just another Holocaust is in the making since 2017. The situation is absolutely horrific and terrible. I don't know any information about what happened to my siblings, my relatives, and I know many Uyghurs here who are living in this country. Most of them don't have any information, and I know some of them learned one of the family learned their brother who died within 1 week after being released from the concentration camp, and they couldn't speak publicly or give interview to press because they fear that if they do that, that they might, the other relatives be targeted and be taken away. So this is a situation. And yesterday, New Line Institute published a report. I would really invite you to read that report. It is about the how China now the action against Uyghur is genocide. It is the over 50 international independent legal experts analyzed the evidence and come to a conclusion that China has breached all the genocide convention and against the Uyghurs. They are committing genocide. So this is what is happening to Uyghur people, and it's just this situation is so big that the topic itself is so big. Sometimes I feel struggle to cover everything, but I think I should stop here. Maybe it's better if I take questions from people. Thank you for listening.
Rahima, you're thanking us, but you know what your family are going through, what you realize is happening to your people, and how much worse it could possibly get, and it almost doesn't have words, does it, to speak, but obviously you need to. One of the things that we want to hear from you is what you think we can do, what you think we can offer, for being, you're so brave to share with us, but we want to be meaningful. So are there any suggestions that you have of what people in the UK are able to do to help make a difference?
Thank you. That's a very important question. I don't know if people are aware of the genocide amendment to the trade bill. We had round 3 now. Lord Alton initiated this genocide amendment to the trade bill. So basically the state shouldn't have trade with a genocidal state. And if the the very first amendment, it asked if the amendment passes the House of Commons, the court, the UK court can make a determination whether any state is committing genocide against its people or to the group. 2 rounds, we were not successful. Now the 3rd round, the House of Lords already passed, and we have the date on the 22nd of February, no, 22nd of March. This bill will come to Commons. and it will be voted in the Commons. We have full support from the Labour and the Liberal Democrat MPs. And the government is against this bill. This time it's not court, because the court is, the government just completely against the court. So now this bill is asking the House of Lords. There are about 12 former judges, and a 5 ex-judge can form a committee, a legal judicial team, and to make a determination. And once that determination is made, then that can be applied to the trade negotiation or whatever. I will send you the full briefing, all the information for people to understand more about what is the genocide amendment. But we would really, number one thing that people can do, especially if your MP is a conservative MP, then we would ask you to push and write to the MP, or phone him or phone her, or have a meeting and try to persuade the MP to vote for this. This is a number one priority that we are campaigning now. So we're hoping that this will pass. The reason we're asking this, because the international route for us to have a court is impossible, because China has a veto power. And China is so powerful even within the UN, and sitting also Human Rights Council in the UN. So the only way that we can get this determination is from the individual states, like UK. And also we have call to action and slave labor coalition campaign. And we ask you to visit the website, Call to Action and Slave Labor. I will send you the whole action page. And we ask you to mindful about your shopping list. When you shop, we preferably, if you could boycott China, we would really welcome that decision, those individual decisions. But if it is too difficult, at least try to avoid goods that is made from forced labor. 84% of China cotton come from the Uyghur region. 20% of the world cotton comes from the Uyghur region. And we know at least the cotton products, from cotton picking to all this factory manufacturing, the Uyghurs now used as slave labor, not limited to the region, but also you've seen on that report, BBC report, they are pushing hundreds of thousands, maybe over a million Uyghurs already, forcing them to work in factories. And these factories like prison, because these people don't have freedom to leave the factory. They are forced to live and work long hours and receive very little for what they do. So that is number 2 priority. Number 3, we also doing a campaign, Winter Olympic, branding the Beijing 2022 Olympic as a genocide game. Genocide game. This is under the Stop Uyghur Genocide campaign. So we would like you to add your voices whenever you see any petitions, or just support this, because we believe this game has no difference to the Berlin 1936 Olympic. So we want people to call on the government and reach out to our MP to ask them to boycott this and raise issue about this this game. There shouldn't be, China shouldn't have the honor to host Olympic while committing genocide against the Uyghur people. And many other things. Also, we have the GoFundMe page that you can donate for the course. And follow me on Twitter. If you have Twitter account, just retweet what I tweet. Most importantly, educate yourself to learn more about what is happening, and raise awareness among your friends, among the family, among more people. And if you have any if you work for any organizations, or where if they want to organize kind of event like this, and reach out to me, and we will be more than happy to help and to give more in-depth information about what's happening.
Rahima, thank you for those things, and I would appreciate if you could, any information that you could send me, and I could help disseminate as well to our community. Only a segment of them are on, but we do have a reach, and this is such a very important message. Some of the messages which are coming on the chat function are parallels between, as you are so clearly stating, between Nazi Germany pre-Holocaust and what's happening to your people as well, and history sadly does repeat itself if we don't learn from it. So please, anything you can do to help raise the awareness. One of the questions that was asked was, even if the UK managed to reach to even if the government is swayed, will China really take notice? Will they really care? Would they? Is there any feeling of what would actually persuade them to change their policies and their plans?
Up until now, Chinese government, the officials, they are repeatedly denying, even trying to intimidate the people, the activists, and also those Uyghur camp survivors who giving evidence. But I think the most effective way for government is to targeted sanctions. Magnitsky sanctions, under the Magnitsky sanctions, targeted sanctioning the individuals that we have the names of those individuals. We have already submitted to Foreign Office. Also entities, there are entities that is complicit in running the camp, the high-tech surveillance, how to criminalize the Uyghurs using the high-tech. All this, we have a very detailed information. US has already sanctioned many officials, blacklisted many high-tech companies, banned cotton products and tomato pastes. They already have done a lot, but our government still, no action has been taken. The words are very, very strong. From Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab at the UN, he spoke very powerfully, asking this unfettered access, etc., etc. But if China don't allow it, it cannot happen. But I believe the governments should do what they can do without having the Chinese government's permission, which is the trade sanctions, and depriving China from big games like Olympic. I believe governments can do that. So we need to put pressure on our government to act.
Absolutely. We have time for a limited amount of questions. Is there anyone who would like to ask anything for Rahima? I know that a lot of messages have come through of affirmations of support for you, and for obviously your people and what you're going through. But is there anyone who would like to ask any questions specifically? Sorry, just if anyone would like to, they can unmute themselves, or alternatively, can put in the chat function for me. Just whilst we're waiting to see if anyone would like to ask something. You did mention to me some parallels that you've seen. I believe over the last couple of years you've had more exposure to the Jewish community than you have had before. I haven't invited you for a Friday night meal yet, but I believe others have as well. With Pesach coming up, you were discussing some parallels that you saw. Maybe you want to just share them with our community.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, this very terrible situation, as it is so parallel to what happened to your people, to Jewish people, that I think brought us together. Especially it started from the meeting with Mia from the Renekisen, and now it is becoming kind of a global Jewish community supporting the Uyghur cause, and which is really is morally and in every way it's comforting. It's really comforting. And I often say that to people, because only when people who experience this kind of tragedy can understand more deeply. And I can give example. When I used to hear people having chemotherapy, I know that is really terrible. I had sympathy. But after I had chemotherapy in 2013 for 6 months, it was absolute terrible experience. So when I hear anyone having chemotherapy, my tears just, I cannot control my tears. I feel that I have that compassion because I know what it is like. So I can feel that from the Jewish community, that compassion, that pain, that feeling of helplessness. Because even before I came to the UK, I read a lot of books, some what was translated into Chinese about Holocaust and about the Nazi era. And I often cried and thought how evil people can be. Not only the what the Hitler, the Nazi did to the Jewish and other minorities, but what made me really kind of angry was those who actually didn't help, who actually knowing that these people will be sent to the camps and will be and that they accepted this, couldn't resist the pressure, and that was really making people angry. And this is what is happening now for my people. We are on, according to the Chinese government census, is 12 million, under 12 million Uyghur, against 1.3 billion, the Chinese entire population. And say they must have birth control, sterilizing, and moving children away from families. Gang rapes happening within the camps. 13 tons of hair seized in the US, because for Uyghur people in the villages and in the tradition, we still have very traditional way of living, because women don't normally like cut hair short. We love very long hair. That is a kind of beauty. It's one of the kind of defined beauty about the Uyghur women. And I don't know if you know this news. It was on front page of Jewish News about this 13 tons of hair that came from Khotan, is one of the very Uyghur populated region from the factory, from the wig factory, and the US seized those hair. And you can see that parallel, how the CCP benefiting from this internment, from the hair, turning the women's body into the weapon, you know, targeting them. They have no power over their own body, there's no rights at all. I worked as an consultant and interpreter for ITV documentary, Undercover China's Digital Gulag. And we had an undercover cameraman, Chinese man, went to the Uyghur region, and he interviewed some Han Chinese officials. And one of the Han Chinese officials in Urumqi, without knowing who he was speaking to, and he said, when the reporter asked, all what this happening, don't you think Uyghur people feel their human rights are being violated? And the Han official said, it is not about violating their human rights. They just don't have human rights. They simply don't have human rights. And there was another Chinese official while sitting in a pub drinking beer. And he said, oh my God, when these people all released, we need to have a lot of mental hospital because they are not normal. They won't be normal. And I can see that because I have been in touch with all 9 survivors. 8 of them are female. Most of them suffered absolute horrific torture, and they all have heart condition, all developed heart condition, and they just Tursunay Ziauddin, who revealed 3 times she suffered gang rape in one of the camps in where I come from, Volja. And she says that she have nightmares every night. Every night she suffered from nightmares. And she also talked about many young women after they were released from the camp, felt unworthy and turned to alcohol. And this is very rare for Uyghur people because of our faith. We don't drink alcohol. And they just cannot cope with the reality and what happened to them and during that detention. So I also about the Passover. We also have the Muslim story of Passover, the parallel. And I also helped to write, contribute to one of the article about this parallel, what the similarity about the slavery and also the controlling the birth, and that the parallel is so similar. And I guess all the atrocities are similar.
Yes, they are, but your people are going through it now, and there's too much silence which is going on. Do you know why the UK, is it simply the residents to get involved? Is it from the Parliament is because they're worried about trade deals, and the trade deals are very important? Is it just money? Is that what it is?
Yes, there was an article about a week ago, I think a week or 2 weeks ago, about the connection, like Boris Johnson's his own brother, and their connection, the business connections with China. And among the, as well as so many parliamentarians and speaking very passionately about what is happening to Uyghurs, that are asking, calling on the government to stand firm against against China, but the government still talking about trade deal. There was a meeting, the Chinese Lunar New Year, the trade officials had the meeting openly tweeted on Twitter about the, increasing trade and improving UK economy. That hurts. That really, really hurts. Because my friend who works for the US government, Nuri Turkel, who born in in labor camp, and he once said, US targeted sanctioned Chinese officials, blacklisted companies, and did many things. And the sky didn't fall. They're still fine. And I'm sure, our government, there is always alternatives on trade. But there are many ministers very keen to have business with China. Things is not that simple, I guess, because of the golden era that started by the David Cameron's government, and it is too much dependency on China in many ways, and so they're just reluctant to take a kind of drastic action. But I am sure if the government really, really think, they believe what we are saying, but if they think that these people, 12 million people, are far more important, those dirty money, then things can change. But how we can change that mentality or the decision makers, I guess still it's our job. And I am hopeful. I'm still hopeful. 1 or 2 years ago, I was very lonely. There is not many people with me. Now especially in this country, we have the trend that things are changing. So we just need to push and believe in our own power.
Well, one thing I can tell you is that we believe in you, and you have certainly won us over to an extraordinarily worthy cause. I know that there are 1 or 2 questions that people have, but we have reached towards the end of our session. Is there anyone who has a pressing question that they would like to offer to Rahima before we close the session at this time?
Yes, it's Harris.
Yes.
I'd like to ask Rahina, what support have there been from the numerous Muslim countries in support of your people? Countries such as Pakistan, which is very Muslim, Indonesia, which has the biggest Muslim population of about 1 billion people, the Muslim populations of the Middle East, especially the Ayatollahs in Iran, the guardians of Mecca. One doesn't seem to have heard anything from them about the persecution of their fellow religionists.
Thank you, Harris.
Thank you. Thank you. That's one of the tragedy. Of the, Uyghur people, as well as being Muslim, and then this very faith, the Muslim faith, became the target by the CCP. But yet, no Muslim countries, I can say no Muslim countries, showed kind of open support or open condemnation against China. But there are reasons. China had the strategy, just like West didn't have strategy against China. From the rising power in the start of the rising power from the early 80s, and then in 1989, the student massacre that happened in Beijing Tiananmen Square. I left Square on the 2nd of June. Massacre happened on the 4th of June. Even then, no country really punished China. They got away with it. There are many other examples that I can say. So, what China did since having more money and power, bribing the countries, started with the neighboring countries. They always know that their biggest headache are the two ethnic groups, Tibetans and the Uyghurs, because Tibet was also an independent country, is occupied by China, and they always had the Tibetan resistance. And then Uyghurs, we always resisted the rule, the persecution. And if there is some kind of uprising, who would come and support the Turkic people, the Turkic countries, and the Muslim countries? So in order to avoid that happen, it started with Shanghai Agreement. It started with 5 countries, with neighboring countries. Then it increased to over 20. So the diplomatic strategy and the trade, One Belt, One Road initiative, they made all the countries indebted to China. So the Chinese government Chinese people have the saying, as I studied from my primary school up to my university, it's Chinese. They say, 有钱能使鬼推磨. That's in Chinese. When you have money, you can make the ghost work for you. They believe in, that's the way how they believe. And also, 吃人嘴短 said, if you eat someone's food, your tongue becomes shorter. So this is a kind of policies that they used in every country, targeting the powerful. So these people, knowingly, not knowingly, became too friendly with China, accepted bribes knowingly, not knowingly, including our institutes here in the universities, just to, research programs, for example. China have been investing so much money. In the end, then when you have invested and you become a stakeholder, become a big stakeholder, and you have power over that. So this is a situation. But that doesn't really justify, it cannot justify why the Muslim countries not speaking up against this absolute horror that the Uyghurs are facing. Cannot justify that. History will judge in the end. We believe in God. We believe every good deeds we get reward, every bad deeds we will pay for it. It's a matter of time. That's what I believe, what I deeply believe. That's how I was taught from young age. Do good, be good, love your neighbor, love others, share your money, and be generous. And that is a kind of value that a religious family normally teach their own children and their generations. And we believe even this darkest, terrible times could be a new beginning, could be opportunity. So those are the kind of power that give me hope, and it gave me strength to carry on every day, every single day, and to fight. And I still believe that actually I am lucky than these evil, powerful people, because at least when I go to bed at night, I don't have any worry. You know, I'm not worried that what the bad thing that I done will haunt me. So I am at peace.
You are at peace, but you are certainly not resting. You are working very, very hard, and we really commend you. We're going to close the evening now, and I look forward to you sharing, sending to me whatever information you can regarding the petitions and whatever, and maybe a template of a letter for us to send to our MP as well. And if there's any specific list of items which are more known to be worthy of boycotting, also to let us know as well. But most importantly, we really would like to stand with you and your people and your suffering. It's absolutely horrendous for it to be taking place in our time, and we have to be outspoken about it. And that's what the point of this evening is all about, and your bravery and courage, and so inspirational and so moving as well. This time of year, as we go towards Passover, is a time when we will sit down at our Seder table and say, next year may we be in Jerusalem. I think for you, next year you're saying we're probably next year in East Turkestan, to be able to go back home, which is something that has been denied for you for so long. But please God, you'll be able to do that in peace and safety for you, your family, and hopefully this will be a new beginning of blessing for all of you, and for all those who've done wrong, for the world to see them and for them to be called to account for it. So thank you so much for taking part this evening, and we're so grateful for you coming, and for all those who attended as well. What I would consider to be such a significant night of exploration and education. So thank you very much.